Welcome back to the Boys in the Booth podcast, episode 215. And in this episode, we are going to be previewing the Metropolitan Division. We had a pair of regular season games over the weekend with the Devils and the Sabres. And with you for this one is Cody and Abrams. No Chad Melbourne for this one. Not feeling the greatest, but that's okay. Case, we'll keep rolling on here and get into the Metro. So let's not waste any time, brother. Let's get right into it. And let's go to you first, as we always do, for your team in the number one position in this division. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously a division I always like to talk about because it's near and dear to my heart with my team being the Devils. And it's even better to talk about this season because I do have the Devils back at number one in this division. Last year was a major letdown. Injuries and goaltending really hurt this team. Well, this team looks to be back as division favorites with another year of growth and some perfect additions as well as a new head coach. Before I get ahead of myself, those additions, I'll talk about them. Tom Fitzgerald had a goal of goaltending and size this offseason. Well, he started with bringing in Jacob Markstrom, who is still an elite caliber goalie and will get to play behind a strong team again, and I think will flourish from that. They already kind of made an addition in goaltending last year late, picking up Jake Allen, so that's a great backup as well. He looked really good for the Devils late in the season. And then after goaltending, you picked up Brett Pesce, a top four defenseman from a division rival, friends of Dougie Hamilton. It'd be nice to see them on the same team again and maybe on the ice together. And then they focused on size. Brendan Dillon, Stefan Noesen, Paul Cotter. Paul Cotter is poised to break out this season with the Devils. He's still 24 years old. He has lots of size, lots of speed, and unbelievable hands for like a bottom six type forward. I don't know if you remember the goal he scored against Philly. It was like highlight of the night, highlight of the month. Through the legs, going in on two defenders, snuck by them, scored. Well, he almost pulled that off again in that second game against Buffalo. Went tweener, just missed the post. It was beautiful. But his hands are nice. The game-winning goal showed that off on Saturday. And I think he's the type of player that Sheldon Keefe's really going to like. And because of that, he's going to flourish here in New Jersey. But, Stefan Noesen has a nose for the net. He knows where to be, and his forecheck is relentless. It's a lot of size being added in the bottom six that this team kind of desperately needed. And then Brendan Dillon is just a hitting and shot blocking machine. And I'm happy about that addition. So, another year of this young core only getting better. The complementary pieces are coming together very, very well. Good goaltending. I think, the sky's the limit for this team this year.
Yeah, I didn't have the Devils at number one in this division. I had them at number two, but could certainly see the argument to make them number one. And no surprise that you're going with them for the number one spot in this division. And we got to see them this weekend. We got to see them this past weekend against my Sabres, and unfortunately, not the results I was hoping for. But this team looks really good, Case, top to bottom. Markstrom just played so incredibly well in that first game in Prague. And then the second game, I thought Jake Allen did a good job. And, the Devils were, I hate to say it, they were the better team in those two games. Just the compete hard on the forecheck. They got bigger and better to play against. And, talk about all the new additions. Like they made impacts right away. Stefan Noesen gets a big goal in that first game in Prague. Paul Cotter jumps out right away, makes that beautiful between the legs move around Dylan Cousins, rushing down the right side in that second game on Saturday. And Seamus Casey, a young defenseman getting an opportunity with some injuries on the back end to start the season. And man, it looks like the Devils have a steal in this kid. What a beautiful first goal that he scored for his first career NHL goal. And then, you're really seeing the depth as well that that Tom Fitzgerald has added. I mean, look at the weekend that Jonathan Kovacevic had. You know, you pick him up from Montreal. It was kind of seen as like a nothing trade, and then he goes out in the first game and gets a goal and an assist against the Sabres and makes an impact right away. So the big thing I think is health, and if this team can get saves. Well, right now they're off to a 2-0 start, and things look really good. And they had an excellent offseason. The new additions are making an impact right away. So expecting big things from the Devils this season, and rightfully so. Again, had another team ahead of them in number one in this division, but could certainly, see this team finishing atop the Metro and going on a deep playoff run. So, yeah, big things to come for this team for sure.
Touch on some of your points there. Like the depth of this team, I think is maybe their biggest strength. You still have guys cracking or trying to crack the lineup in like a Nolan Foote, who's the team's 14th forward. And when you kind of look at this team on paper, I don't know if there's many better top nines in the entire league. And I don't think there is a better top 12, not really something we say often, but in the entire league. And then on D, bringing in Kovacevic, I thought of it as kind of a nothing thing. Figured he'd be the seventh defenseman, which it's likely he is going to be.
Yep.
But these first two games and the preseason, he's been very strong. Even with Sheldon Keefe after the first game calling him Kovechkin because he got a goal early for the Devils. But
yep.
I like what I see from him. If he's going to be the seventh and, Seamus Casey's the eighth defenseman on this team, it feels pretty good moving forward. It's there's a lot to like about the depth of this team, and I like where they're heading.
Certainly. So there we go. We'll get to the next team we're going to talk about. So good to have the Devils in number one after that discussion. And so the next team we'll move on to is the New York Rangers. The other side of the Battle of the Hudson. And I think for the Rangers, obviously a deep team, top to bottom. They've made it to the Final Four twice in the last 3 years, I believe. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals once again, losing to the eventual Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers this past season. But look, this is a deep team, and obviously the big thing on the horizon is getting a long-term extension done for Igor Shesterkin, an elite goaltender who's one of the best in the National Hockey League. So it kind of feels like this is maybe the last kick at the can for this current mix of New York Rangers players. We've seen a few changes this offseason. Barclay Goodrow gets waived and goes to San Jose to create some cap room. They're able to bring in Riley Smith, which I think was a really great addition. And what's interesting, too, is we heard a lot of reports out there about Jacob Trouba potentially being moved this offseason to create some cap flexibility. And it's pretty crazy when we're talking about that, just given the fact that he's their captain, their leader, and what a player he is, and playing on the edge, and you need guys like that. But it feels like this is the last chance for this group to win, and then we're going to see some changes. And I certainly think the Devils or the Rangers, have a great chance at doing so. And they've got mostly the same roster coming back again. So Rangers 1 or 2 in this division. I don't think they go any lower. What are your thoughts on the Rangers?
Yeah, I think this team's going to give the Devils a run for their money. I have them, New Jersey and the Rangers, as kind of in a tier of their own, like a cup favorite tier, or it's those two, and then there's a big gap, and then there's 4 teams kind of clumped together in this division, and really it could go anywhere with those. But I had the Rangers at number 2. It's one of the best top 6s in the entire league. They've got a pretty strong, or like I'd say well above league average decor with a stud in Adam Fox. A top tier tandem, which, you talk about guys maybe out the door. You hear about troubles in the Shesterkin camp and working out a deal with him, and that might be an issue going forward. So maybe this is the last year that they really get to try to push for a cup. But I have no doubt in Drury that he can kind of retool pretty quick and make up, strike up some deals around the deadline. Maybe seeing some good players going out at the deadline for even better players. A Trouba, upgrading him to a better defenseman. Even K'Andre Miller has been talked about as maybe a piece that you move for someone a little more further along in their progress, in their development. A real in their prime stud defenseman. So lots can happen with this team. They're very strong. They have a power play that, every team fears playing against. They're so good. It's where Kreider scores 1 billion goals on the power play. They've got, Panarin on the wing. But I think it's Lafreniere's season to really step ahead and maybe lead this team in scoring. I think that would be great to see and really develop as a leader on this team moving forward. So, I have them at number 2 and absolute lock at 1 or 2, like in the top.
Yeah, no, and I like what you said there a few moments ago. Like the way I see this division after the Rangers and the Devils, like it's kind of wide open, really. Like they are in a tier of their own. I agree. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. Who do you have in that third spot, Case?
I hemmed and hawed about this for a long time, but I do still have the Carolina Hurricanes as a playoff lock here at number 3. Like I said, Devils and Rangers tier their own. Carolina is at the top of this next little grouping. They had a ton of important departures from this team. Teravainen,
sure
Gensel, even though they didn't have him very long. Their second pair in Brady Shea and Brett Pesce, Nason and others leaving this team, and now Jesper Fast is out for the season. Missing these guys is going to be a big hit to this team. But that being said, they filled those holes admirably, I'd say. It's not perfect, but they've done a good job patching up. And they still have a set of stud forwards. And, the always loved on this podcast, Jacob Slavin is locked up long-term as their number 1 defenseman. With the departures here and their D going from kind of a top-tier D-core to a slightly above average D-core. They still have a hole in their top 6, and I'm not sold on their goaltending still. I've been proven wrong before, but I just think all this being said, they're a playoff team, but they're definitely taking a step back from being that in that elite group.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually had Carolina down 1 spot in 4th in this division, but could certainly see them finishing in that 3rd spot. And, I look at the forward group and it does concern me a little bit. We wonder how that contract for Jesperi Kotkaniemi is ever going to age with this team. Unfortunately, you lose a guy like Stefan Nason, but you kind of replace him in a way with a guy like Will Carrier, an interesting deal there. So, and we know that Eric Tulsky is a brilliant mind in hockey, taking over as general manager of this team. And they're obviously well coached by Rod Brindamore and still have a lot of really good pieces on this team. The Ahos of the world, the Svechnikovs of the world. Martin Necas is back, kind of betting on himself. And, he's going to get a really good opportunity to have a lot more responsibility on this team. And you mentioned Slavin there and some of the others. So Carolina will be fascinating to watch this year, but still think that, they're a good hockey team. They're going to take a step back here, but it's an organization that I think makes a lot of really smart decisions, and they should be fine and still should be a playoff team. So third or 4th, absolutely.
Seth Jarvis, that's a guy that I really wanted or would have hoped to have had in fantasy hockey because I think he's going to take off this year. He kind of needs to be the guy. So other than, of course, Aho and Svech, but they need a third guy out there. So yeah.
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there's never been a better time to get signed up, and we're here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping right away with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through the link in the description down below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use the link and support the boys. So one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. This podcast is also sponsored by the absolute best ticket app out there, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals on tickets to your favorite sporting events. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know if you're getting a good or a bad deal. If the tickets are green, for example, you better act quick and secure those things because that's a good deal. But if the tickets are red, maybe wait a bit before pulling the trigger and monitor the price in the app. SeatGeek just makes it way too easy. Anyway, here's the best part though. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BoysInTheBooth in all caps. So click the link in the description down below to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code BoysInTheBooth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, Carolina certainly in that third or fourth spot. The next team I had, and this is an interesting team. They kind of had a big offseason as well, and that's the Washington Capitals. The next team for me, I think that Brian McClellan, who now takes over as president of hockey operations, Chris Patrick is now the general manager. Very similar kind of shift or succession plan that we saw in Colorado with Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic. So that's interesting there. But I think the Capitals have done a fantastic job of kind of retooling on the fly. We're starting to see that next crop of young players that are coming in and taking steps forward, the McMichaels of the world, the Lapierres, the Fiervaris, Protuses, the Miroshnichenkos, the list just goes on for this team, while still trying to be competitive and get into the playoffs and win, while Alexander Ovechkin is chasing Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record. So I think they made a lot of good moves this offseason, a lot of interesting moves. Pierre-Luc Dubois obviously comes out on the top of the list. 7 years left on a long-term deal at an $8.5 million cap hit. Kind of the last chance for him, and you hope that he'll be motivated to come in and make an impact and help with the offensive capabilities of this team, and I certainly think he'll be able to do that. And then you make a big add in Jacob Chychrun on the back end, Matt Roy as well, who's just an excellent defender coming out of LA, and then Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren. That sounds like a really great kind of 1A, 1B goaltending tandem, and Lindgren had a fantastic season last year. So this team should be able to score more. We know that they got into the playoffs with just an awful goal differential. Don't know if we'll ever see that again, but I think the Capitals will be better. They've done a good job kind of retooling on the fly here, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this season. What are your thoughts on the Caps?
I think that this kind of perfectly proves what we were saying about the next group of four teams being anywhere, because I had Washington in 6, and it sounds like you have them in 3. So but the argument's certainly there. I think they had a great off season. I like a lot of the additions. I think a lot of them are, complementary players, and I would have loved to see a stud come in for Ovi to play with, kind of play out his career with. Gensel comes to mind. I think he'd look real good on that top line with Ovechkin, but it's not the way it happened, and they were able to bring in some good players. Where I think that this team is being hurt is, father time has taken a toll. There's kind of seems to be one gear slower on the back end, and a guy like John Carlson, for example, as well as Ovechkin. But I'd even throw Tom Wilson in there. I felt like he kind of flew under the radar last season, and it's the center core for me is also the main focus when I was kind of determining which team went where. And although I think, Dylan Strome is a face-off wizard and has looked really good playing with Ovechkin the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
It's him as the number 1C, and then to me it tapers off there. I do like Hendrix Lapierre, but it's not proven yet, so I can't hang my hat on that.
Mm-hmm.
And Pierre-Luc Dubois, he's been on 4 teams for a reason now. It's because he's very streaky and he can disappear at times. So I hope for his sake, and I hope for Ovechkin's sake, that he can be the guy that they brought him in to be. It kind of resulted in a lot of questions when I was looking at this team, but they can be answered well, and they could be a playoff team. So that's why I had them a little lower.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's what makes this Metro division so fascinating, as we said right off the top, with the different tiers and all of that. So, Case, who do you have at this number 5 spot in this division?
I have the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I do as well.
Yeah, this team just missed the playoffs last year, and they're looking to come back a little revamped and ready to be, knocking on the door again. They're most likely a wild card team, but I think they're going to be right there in the mix. One of the reasons, and actually the main reason why I have them here, is looking at their advanced analytics last year and kind of how this team ended up. They, at 5v5, were among the top 5 best teams in the league. They were high in goals for and very high in expected goals for, but they were 30th in power play percentage. They absolutely shit the bed when it came to the power play.
Which is it's mind blowing with all the talent that they have. Yeah. Anyway.
That's what I'm going to say. To me, that can't happen 2 years in a row with Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Carlson, Rust, all these guys who can be power play weapons. They had to have focused on this, and this has to turn around. Maybe they come back, they regress a little bit at 5v5, but if their power play is in the top 15 in the league, then automatically that equals itself out, and they look so much better. I'm not absolutely sold on the depth of this team, but I do like the additions of Bunting and Hayes and Beauvillier. Their back end looks to be shored up with Graves and Grzelcyk. So, all in, I'm leaving out the biggest question, which is goaltending. Mm-hmm. But all in, I think that this team is still there and ready to give kind of one last push for this core.
Yeah, and obviously the biggest and most positive story from this summer from Pittsburgh was Sidney Crosby re-signing for 2 more years at that $8.7 million cap hit. I mean, we were hearing that it could be 10.5 or something like that, but clearly Sid, took a little bit less, I'm sure, and stuck with that 8.7, which is so cool to see. And winning is important, and making sure that this organization is set up for some success. And, look, Case, I've been very critical of Kyle Dubas and the job that he's done so far in Pittsburgh, but certainly understanding that, it is a tough position to be in from ownership and with the guys that you have like Crosby, Malkin, Letang, etc., that the mandate is to win and is to remain competitive. And so potentially some good bets here, the Rutger McGroartys of the world and the Cody Glasses and some of the guys that we didn't mention. And the goaltending will be fascinating as well. when Tristan Jarry is healthy and healthy for a long stretch of time, he can be a very good goaltender. And Alex Nedeljkovic really showed something last season for Pittsburgh. So we'll see where this goes, but I agree they're going to be in the fight right until the bitter end. Maybe squeak in as a wild card team here, or maybe just miss, and then things get really fascinating. But yeah, it's hard to bet against Sid in particular, and they're going to be right there till the bitter end if they don't get in. Yeah, absolutely. All right, number 6, and Case, I have the New York Islanders in this position, and to talk about an interesting team, Lou Lamoriello, a fascinating general manager. You don't get a lot from him or the Islanders organization as to what they're up to. Had a pretty quiet offseason. They bring in Anthony Duclair for some more scoring, which they definitely needed, but this team is pretty much the same. They've committed long-term to a lot of guys. First full season for Patrick Waugh, who I think definitely gave them a bit of a boost when he came in, taking over for Lane Lambert last season. But I just look at this team top to bottom and just think that they're the same, and I don't, not much really excites me about the Islanders, to be quite honest. And, we're seeing in the headlines a lot of players on waivers, and, a big name under the radar is Pierre Engvall. This is a guy that you gave 7 years to at a $3 million cap hit per season, and he's now on waivers. And so just another move that has kind of gone by the wayside for this organization that doesn't have a ton in the pipeline. They have not had very much playoff success the last number of years. And so I just really don't know where the Islanders are going, but we always know they're hard to play against, but I just can't see them being any higher than 6th in this division. What are your thoughts?
I kind of messed up this order of how we do this, because I put Pittsburgh at 5 because I had them at 5, but oddly enough, I had the New York Islanders at 4 in this division. And
okay,
like I said, this is this group of 4 that could be anywhere. I definitely hear your argument about, like last year I was looking at this team and we didn't really know what to think of them, and I still don't really know what to think of them. But I think that this team being the same is maybe a good thing. I think the obvious strength of the New York Islanders is in net. I think I've said this a lot, and it's starting to sound like not that big of a thing, but one of the best tandems in the league. Like I feel like I've said that about 5 teams now, but this one might be the best tandem in the league because Sorokin is so good. Varlamov is an incredible backup, should be a starter in his own right. But another strength to this team is their D-core, and it comes in sort of a less flashy way. Everyone has bought in on the back end to the physicality and team defense. 5 of their defenders blocked over 100 shots last year. Romanov and Polak are hitting machines, and now with the emergence of a number 1 puck mover in Dobson, who had over 70 points last year, I think this D-core looks really good. I think that the forwards were sneaky fast last year, not usually something I feel like I'm saying about the Islanders. And with the addition of Duclair and the Russian Tai Splikov, or whatever his name is.
Oh, yes.
Coming over from Russia after a very strong 31-goal season in the KHL. I think that's only going to benefit the speed of this team and infuse some goal scoring. I just think that they're a team that's going to win a lot of games that are close, hard, and tight, and they're going to find their way sneaking into a wild card spot like they seem to always do. And that's why I have them at 4. But again, put the asterisks on here that any of these 4 teams can flip-flop.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like that's what makes this division so fascinating. We're having a lot of kind of back and forth and difference of opinion here, but that's a good thing, and just shows that the difference from top to bottom in this division. Absolutely. So Case, two more teams to cover, 7 and 8 positions in this division. Number 7 now, I have the Philadelphia Flyers in this number 7 position, and boy, oh boy, did they ever surprise us last season. You know, being in the fight right until the bitter end, the wheels really fell off. You know, during that final stretch, and we saw the frustration out of John Tortorella, and rightfully so. I think that for the Flyers, they will definitely come back to earth this season, just continue that rebuild direction that they need to be on. I think Danny Briere has done a really good job, and obviously all eyes are going to be on Matvei Michkov this season, who should give them just a tremendous bump for that team internally and that fan base. But again, just for the Flyers, continue to go through this process for so many years. They were a middling team, and, you know, trying to hit the fast forward button. Well, that's not going to be the case anymore. And, you know, with a team that's coached by John Tortorella, could they surprise us again and be in the fight right until the bitter end? I suppose so, but I do think that they will come down to earth this season and finish in that 7th spot. What do you think?
I think they'll come back down to earth and leave a crater. I personally had them at 8. The argument's certainly there for 7, and it's probably more likely that they're at 7. It might be a bit of a hopeful pick that I had Columbus at 7, but Philly, you know, that last 3 months of their season last year, I think that's what we're going to see all season, and that's going to result in them being, you know, near the bottom of this division, if not the bottom.
Yeah.
There's things to like you said, about this team. A lot of that comes in the form of their young wingers, and Forrester and Tippett, who's blown up since he came to Philly. You know, Michkov, as you mentioned, and Brink. On the back end, York, Sanheim, Drysdale looks like a good top 3 forming. But after that, you know, the center core is certainly not there. The depth is not there. The goaltending is less than, you know, there's more to be desired there. Mm-hmm. And I just think that last, you know, call it 2 months of the season is more what we can expect from this team.
Yeah, so Case, like what it sounds like to me is like what you're saying, like this team will just need to rely on a lot of internal development, and like that's what you have to expect and rely on when you're a rebuilding team. Mm-hmm. And you know, another player who could make this team after being drafted in the first round this year is Jet Luchenko. So that will be interesting to watch out for. As well. A little side note on the Flyers as we wrap up. So, Case, let's get to the number 8 spot. I had the Columbus Blue Jackets, and now why don't you talk about Columbus, and we can have some discussion there.
Yeah, and you know, I don't have too much to say about Columbus. I think that they're starting to come together as a team. They've got some young weapons forming up front. I think there's a lot of guys who, you know, maybe they don't have a 30 or 40 goal scorer on this team, but there could be 5 20 goal scorers emerging really quick. And I think that this growth is slow so far, but it's certainly coming together. And now they have a really good top 4 that I think, you know, Damon Severson, I expected him to have not that great of a year, his first year in Columbus, and that was the case. But I think that he's going to bounce back pretty strong here. You know what you get in Werenski and Provorov, and another year of David Jiricek. That's going to be exciting. So I think that, you know, after the tragedy that they endured this offseason, I think they're going to be playing with a purpose, and it's going to be kind of that first step we see from this team in the right direction.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, you know, this organization obviously has every excuse to go out and have a really rough season. But I think that in a way, things are really looking up. There's a new there's new management there with Don Waddell, who did a pretty good job in Carolina, and he's running things now. I think we expect that Rick Nash will be a general manager there someday. And I think Dean Evison is a really good coach too. I think that he's a really good players coach. He has good relationships with his players and gets the most out of his team. And he did a really good job in Minnesota. They obviously made a late addition in James Van Riemsdyk to help out the forward group a little bit. And again, you're just relying on that internal growth from the Adam Fantillis of the world, the Cole Sillingers, the David Juraceks, the list goes on. And health is going to be a big thing for this team as well, particularly for a guy like Zach Werenski, and goaltending too. We'll see what happens with Merzlikins, but they've got they've got two young emerging goaltenders in Tarasov and Jet Greaves as well. So the pipeline is deep with Columbus. We know that it really is. They've made some, yeah, no, exactly. They've made some really good ads. It's just absolutely gut wrenching what they've had to go through this offseason with the passing of Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew, but they're going to have his jersey up in the locker room the entire season. They're going to have a purpose to play for, and this team is going to be hard to play against on a lot of nights for sure, but they'll just be able to take a step here. It'll be about internal growth and just continuing to build along this process. So expecting a lot of good things from Columbus this year after a really tough off season, but in the standings, definitely have them at the bottom or just above it for sure. All right, Case. Well, that does it for episode 215, I think, talking about the Metropolitan Division as we get the 24-25 NHL season underway, and we are looking forward to wrapping up our season division previews, of course, with the Atlantic Division next week. But before that, obviously enjoy opening week of hockey, enjoy Canadian Thanksgiving, and we will chat with you again next week. Take care.